It is definitely chaotic and fun and exhausting, but in fulfilling all of that all at once. Um, I started working in financial services right out of college, and have stayed with the same company. I know a lot of people there. I have a lot of sponsors, mentors, people who care, friends. Um, I met my husband through one of my best friends at work, and so I've definitely, grown up in that environment. But my entire life has been about Bharatanatyam and dance as well. So my gurus are my mother and my aunt, and as a child, I thought everybody learns Bharatanatyam and everybody goes to dance class after school and everybody dances, and that was my life. I mean, I distinctly remember when someone would take out a camera to do a dance pose because I didn't know that anything else was the norm. And so dance was, like breathing. And so there was no life outside of that in my head, even as I grew up. And so, having both of them sort of like a train track, I mean, both go along with me was just how I, envisioned life when I started working. It wasn't as if I was choosing one path or the other. Motherhood obviously is a completely different story. 2.5 years ago, life changed. And that became the central focus of everything, as it does with most moms, right? And so it became the spine, and I think that, it became sort of the central part of the spine, and then everything else branches out of it. Work, friends, life, dance, everything else revolves around that. And so it's definitely difficult. I mean, like logistically, practices are at 6 in the morning and at 9 at night and throughout the weekends. And you try and borrow time from every place that you can because you have to. Different distinct sections of my life, but it's life and it blends together. And when it blends together, new colors are made. It's fun, and that's what it's about. It's a spectrum. And so yes, it's definitely difficult. Yes, I'm lucky and fortunate that I have the support system and the infrastructure to help me do that. I don't take it for granted. And yes, I work really hard, but sometimes it's exhausting. But I just don't know any other way. And so it's also fulfilling to just be who you are.
Yeah, and that's so refreshing to hear.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that art is about so many things, right? It's not just practice. Practice is a huge component of it, but a lot of it as an artist is also marinating, thinking, being in the moment, and drawing inspiration from so many places. It's about research, deconstructing, and then reconstructing, and then choreography, editing, getting feedback, doing it all over again, all of that. So yes, it does take time. But it's also all of those steps and all of those processes. And all of those processes draw from experiences that you have as a human, as a person, as a mother, obviously, but also the interactions I have, the experiences I have, the hurdles and the challenges you face, and it is an intense work environment. And you have a lot of people who have their own challenges, and you meet them, and from their lives, you draw inspiration. And also, the other aspect of this is as succeed in one aspect or one hurdle, one challenge in life, it inspires you to say, okay, well, I can do more. I can do more of this. And
Mhm.
so, when you have just done a varnam late at night or
Mm.
finished a margam practice and you're looking at your video and you're not sure how it's going to look, but it's actually okay, and you think, okay, wow, I actually did do better than I thought I would do. That one makes you want to, in that moment, go do it again, right? And so I think that hard work begets more hard work, begets more hard work, and so do these experiences. They feed into you and help you produce different work. If not more meaningful, certainly more colorful, like I said before.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I think it is when you don't hit that mark. And by the way, most often I don't hit that mark.
Yeah,
I don't, it's better than I had hoped is probably what I can say. But most often you think, oh, I could have done better.
yeah,
You know why,
yeah.
but it's never good enough. I'm always in the, if the bar is here, you're here. If you manage to get closer, no, you raise the bar a bit more.
Yeah.
Um, critical is one thing, but I think that I would probably do that even if I wasn't exhausted from my day job, even if I was on vacation and saw a practice video. I think that benchmark has to, as artists, we keep raising it and we keep trying to see if we can get closer to it.
So you never use that as an excuse for any sort of slacking or anything
No.
like that?
I
No.
mean, if you're tired during
Yeah.
practice, you're tired during practice.
Okay.
Get over it next time. It is, it's a stark reminder that you just have to do better next time.
That's nice. That's nice.
Um, it definitely crossed my mind, right? I mean, there are moments when you're exhausted or when your child is sick or when, you catch yourself in these moments where you have no control. And losing that sense of control is definitely not something I do well with.
Yeah.
And so in those moments, I wonder, oh my God, I feel guilty about even thinking I'm losing a part of myself because there's something greater that I'm supposed to be looking after and caring for. It's, I'm sure, a universal struggle that many mothers feel because they're being pulled in so many directions, even if the main focus in that moment is your child. So, yes, the fear of losing a part of myself was there and comes and goes,
Mhm.
but it is fleeting because, at least for me, I also see, as it relates to motherhood, what I've gained in spades, and that feeling of unconditional love and that bond and the energy that I get from just being around this child, I
Yes.
think, in it just in spades makes up for those moments where you feel like you're losing a part of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
At
That's.
least for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
Absolutely. I mean, so many, but particularly this moment, I had just given birth. A few weeks before that, I went to the doctor. I decided, oh, okay, I'm gonna, start dancing again, and I walked into the studio and was exhausted. I mean, I was just exhausted. I anticipated having a tough practice, but I was exhausted. And doing a Trikala Jati was the thing that I thought I would test myself with, and it became a benchmark. And I remember I was thinking, oh my God, like how am I going to get back to someone who just breezed through amalgam after an exhausting day? Like, what
Yeah.
is a 2-hour practice was the norm.
Yeah.
And I think what I held on to, and that's why I think these conversations are so important, is people like me,
Mm.
like other dancers of generations before us, and other people like us who have done it and who said it's doable. Just be patient with yourself, be kind, and being patient is so important, um, even generally, but especially now. And I held on to those words and I said, okay, I will, do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And you finally get there. But it was hard. It was hard to have faith in that moment when your body is so different and you don't recognize
Yeah.
something that was so natural before. Um, but now it seems like so long ago. But you've had those vulnerable moments often in many different contexts, but that one particularly was a learning point for me. 100% you can be both, I think. I think so. I think there's two parts on the balance side and whether we can be both. I think, um, you know, mother and doctor, mother and lawyer, mother and teacher, mother and painter, mother and artist, you can do all of those things.
Yeah.
Of course, how you do it can vary a lot. And let's be real, we need help and support. It takes a village. Um, at the same time, I would say that in terms of the balance aspect of it, it will always be a tug of war.
Mhm.
And if you're comfortable with a tug of war being pulled on one side and the other side and one side and the other side, and knowing when to pull back so that you don't fall, it will work out. And so I think that's what the balance is. It'll always be a dynamic shift here and there, never static. But I see women do it all the time. Even women who don't technically have, a job outside the house wear 1,000 different hats inside the household. And so how we codify it is how we codify it and say, this person has this particular label as this particular profession. But at the end of the day, we're juggling. We're constantly being pulled. And if we're comfortable with that pull and knowing that we're getting pulled, I think it works itself out. Um, I would say so. A few things. You always want. For me, I always have to sort of think about, okay, have I taken care of the things I need to take care of, right? And have I, prepped the family appropriately for, let's say I'm going on tour. So I'm out for 14 days, I'm out for 15 days. Um, Emotionally, I have to say, okay, I've taken care of things and I have to detach myself. That undercurrent will always be there. Did he sleep okay? Did he eat okay? All of that is obviously, I mean, it is like, again, like breathing. Um, but when dance takes over and I'm in that mode, it's that avatar. That's it. Like it's a meditative process from the minute I leave the house and I'm in tour mode or in performance mode and all of that. It is about, how do you get into that spirit? What is it that I'm trying to do? Is it a thematic production? Is it a amalgam? It's about marinating in the music and taking it all and I let myself do it. I mean, frankly, for me, detaching myself from everything else, putting away my phone, not checking my email for, the day that I'm going on stage, those things matter. And in the days leading up to it, gradually letting myself just become laser focused on the days that are to come. It matters to me. It doesn't mean I don't FaceTime with my child or, check in, make sure that everything's okay, but the primary universe that I'm operating in is that of an artist. It definitely takes some time to say, okay, I'm fully transitioning, but that's what I try to do.
That's good.
Um, so I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
I do there's a piece on Kunti that I have performed,
Hmm.
which is part of the production I spoke about earlier, Voices. And so it's about the voices that she feared she would hear if she kept this child. And so she, discards her son Karna. For fear of what she thought people would say. So for
Yeah.
fear of those voices, because she was worried about being judged, she a princess, having a child out of wedlock. Um, and I did, originally I choreographed this production in 2016, and that was before I was a mother. And I did this piece and I look back and in the end of the piece she goes back as an older Kunti to older Karna and tells him the truth and asks him to come join the Pandavas. He says no. And in that moment, um, the way I portray her is this woman who is very sad, broken,
Hmm.
ashamed of her decision, and then lives with it and moves on. And the last few times I've done this on stage, I have actually teared up and broken up. And this isn't because I'm new to this piece, I'm new to this emotion, I've danced it a lot. But the idea that a child would never forgive you for this decision, obviously he hasn't, that she's a mother, but was never a mother to this man, this person. Um, and knowing that's the last time she'll see him, speak to him, all of that, the overpowering emotion behind the fact that you created this character on stage. I mean, I didn't create her, but like that I'm dancing that particular character on stage, that hits me hard every time I do it. And every time I do it, I become more sympathetic towards her. There's less judgment,
Yeah.
there's a lot more empathy because you see her more as a mother and as a young mother, as a young woman, than you do as somebody who made a decision that impacted a lot of other people and placed this kind of gravity. And so I think being a mom has definitely changed my perspective on a character that I worked on and created in the form of a dance in that particular piece so many years before. And being an artist, to come back to the other side of the question, being an artist makes you open to so many things. It makes you open to just receiving, thinking, and not judging, but rather the process of creation, right? So you take something as inspiration and you let it touch you and you then evolve with it. And so as a mom, I'm also realizing that makes me a lot more honestly patient. You don't have to, there's no one way of doing things. It's okay if your child is crying. You teach him, not to stop crying, but rather it's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
Tell me what's making you sad. And so there's that dialogue of just being open and taking and being in the moment that translates itself well into being a mom. Hopefully, not always. Sometimes I lose my patience, but I'm definitely drawing from that side as well, I think.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think you couldn't have said it better.
Similar to the message that I would have given myself, I think I would say, you know, make decisions for yourself,
Hmm.
right? Know thyself, make decisions that work for you. You don't owe anyone an explanation beyond that. And I don't mean that in a be arrogant kind of way. Of course, we're all a part of, a society, a family, and we have other things to think about and, and, you know, but but justifying your actions should not be a focus point ever. Stay true to yourself, and if you want to do, you know, dance full time, do it. I mean, absolutely do it. And if you think that, you know, you do want to go to med school, do that. Do if you don't think that you owe an answer to anyone but yourself. And keep checking in with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Ask yourself if you're making the right questions, and stay true to that answer. And as long as you are doing that, as long as you're staying true to yourself and making decisions for yourself, um, you will look back, you know, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years later, and say, okay, I don't have any regrets. And I I would say that's the one thing. You know, it can all be done if you define it the way you want to do it. So that's my message.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for the lovely message for all the aspiring artists out there. Certain things that needs to be said out loud enough, you know, from artists' point of view. So thank you again for being our
Thank you.
guest for Plano Garage Arts Project.